Today on the podcast, I am talking to Jeffrey Meade. Jeff is the founding director of entrepreneurship at Paul Quinn College, and by 2028, every single student there would have to have launched a business generating real revenue before they graduate. It's not optional, it's mandatory. An actual business with real life stakes. On today's podcast, we talked about the actual shift of what it takes to take a first generation college student's mindset from don't fail to fail fast, and why most schools get entrepreneurship completely wrong, and why Jeff is open sourcing the entire model. All right, let's get into the podcast. Jeff, I firmly believe that there's going to be two types of vocations in the future. One is going to be employee, one is going to be entrepreneur, and I think one might be going away. I'm curious to know why you're diving into really focusing on students in college starting a real business and having those entrepreneurial skill sets.
First, thanks for having me. I would say, since schools have been around, they've done a really good job at getting people employed. The whole point of going to school for the most part is you want to expand knowledge of students, but you also want to make sure that after those 4 years that there's a job waiting for them. And so we've kind of optimized for that. Schools know how to do that really well. But what we've seen, and if you've read any reports on what it looks like, it's hard for college age students, young people, to get jobs. And it's just because the world is changing. We're not sure what those future jobs look like. And what we've heard from employers is we need people who can think on their feet, who can be creative, who can adapt to whatever it is the world is going to look like by the time they graduate college. And so for us, our response to that is, we know exactly how to do that. That would be an entrepreneur. You want somebody who could think entrepreneurially, right? Somebody who's creative, somebody who, where most people see a problem, they're like, oh, this is a solution. I can figure out how to work around this. And so that's what we're doing. It's really helping students start businesses in school. The program is called Every Quinnite is an Entrepreneur. Paul Quinn is the college. And for us, it really is, we want it to be bold, and we didn't want it to be an option. And we wanted to change the mindset for our students really around how do you create something from nothing, right? Lots of our students are first generation students. And I think as a result of being first generation students, they've probably grown up around a lot of scarcity in their world. And so just even the mindset shift of thinking like an entrepreneur is one where you approach things out of abundance. How do we look out at the world and say to ourselves, oh, I can fix this, right? And so that's what we're trying to do with the Every Quinnite is an Entrepreneur program.
No, I really like that. I resonate a lot because everything you just said, first gen here in the US, the one program that changed my entire trajectory was an entrepreneurship program back in college, but it was only 12 kids selected at the entire school of business. So I think it was not 100%. I think it was 1 or 3% of the business school, or the entire, and it was optional. So you didn't, you tried, and there you did have to start a business in some cases, but talk me through, because you have a no optional 100% by what is it, 2028, where every single student has to have a real venture that actually generates real revenue. What are the requirements? Is it $1? Is it $100? Is it $1,000? How do you quantify what a real business is?
So the real business is, it's so funny because when students first get here, and we just launched, I've been at Paul Quinn for going on 1.5 years now. And so I've just started this program with our entering freshmen. So the juniors and the seniors and those folks, they're like, oh, that looks cool. It looks like a lot of work. But it is actually modeled after my alma mater. So I went to Babson College, which is known for their entrepreneurship program.
One of my mentors actually from when I was in college. She was a professor at Babson.
Small world. So what Babson does really cool is they have what they call FME. And so it's Foundations of Management Experience. When we were there, we called it Freshman Management Experience. It's essentially every freshman has to start a business. But you don't start it by yourself. You start it in a group. And I always thought that was really cool. And thought, man, why don't more schools do this? And so having the opportunity, I brought that thinking over here. And it really is every student who comes in now has to start a business that generates revenue. Now, some of our students I've seen in this first couple of months, they are starting businesses and it has been hard to actually turn revenue. And there are a lot of pivots. And so
Mhm.
for me, I'm like, great, that qualifies. They have identified customers, right? Is what I like to call it is what we're doing is experiential learning, but there's stakes involved, right? And so it makes it real. So no, we don't have a bar like $1,000 or $100. It is really you're going through the
Gotta do
steps
it.
of what it takes to start a business. And so it has been really fascinating to see the types of businesses, the business ideas that folks are creating. I like that the visions are getting really big. And so what we do is within the first semester is we push people to think in terms of an MVP, right? Like what's your minimum viable product?
Yep.
And so with that, we're like, what is that will actually entice someone to buy your product in the marketplace? And so we want them to have that big vision, but it's also you got to get a customer and you got to convince them to buy. And so we've had people, some of our students are selling things for $10, right? $15. So it's just to get them. And once you get that going, then they're like, I get it. And then we can start turning the switch to how do we scale this thing?
No, that's key. And even in the beginning, I remember again in my journey and also seeing others around me, it would start just like that, how to reselling items, and then from there they built like a figure e-commerce
Hmm.
businesses out of college. So it's a real thing where you just got to
Yep.
keep trying and iterating. I'm curious, and I was serious on the point that I think that entrepreneurship is a good answer for the new economy that we're heading into, as well as the technological
Yep.
evolution. What are you guys doing to like empower students with tokens, and how many tokens do you allocate per student, or are you paying for any other subscriptions for AI so that they can actually leverage that? I honestly, this is again, I'm an optimist, I'm an entrepreneur, but also been in a program, and not the same, but because I like the rigor 100% of our students have to go through building a business. That's
Right.
you
Right.
gotta anchor that. But right now with the technology, I think this is one of the best times to be an entrepreneur, because now you can work on the speed of solving problems and actually having the technical know-how or execution and power to actually deliver
Yeah.
value
Yeah.
faster.
That's a good question. And so I think what's fascinating is when I first got here, my gut said, we got to be all about AI. Like every business should have an AI component. And then the more I talk to students, I realize maybe not every business. And what I mean is that
Yeah.
what I have been really pushing them to do is looking at truly solving a problem, right? And I think then the nature of being 18, 19, 20 and being told you have to start a business is you just come up with these really cool ideas. One kid said, I'm
Yeah.
gonna consult for small business. I'm gonna use AI. And I'm like, great. What type of small business? What problem do they have? Right. So really pushing it to the core of what problem you're trying to solve. And so as a result, when we get down to the core of it, making sure you're solving a problem that people are willing to pay for, the ideas,
First
yeah,
and
the
foremost.
ideas aren't fully focused on AI. Some of them are, but we haven't had a challenge with like tokens and all that. I mean, the students have access to all of that, but no one's burning through
Mhm.
anything. And they're not burning it through anything because we're so focused on the top of the funnel stuff in many ways in terms of really making sure that you're solving a problem and then really making sure, yeah, that
That's the
there's a
key.
customer there that values that problem being solved. And then how are you going to deliver that to them? And I think for us, as we talk through it, what's happening is once they can solve that problem and they can deliver their solution to the marketplace, then we want to start layering AI and other tools to optimize. But they're not AI first. Let's say that.
That's a good perspective. And yeah, and for just to give you my perspective, working in with professional services, working with other consultants, agencies, it's less of transforming how you deliver with AI, but more about integrating the tech
Right.
into your business model. So it's the number one thing will never change. You got to deliver value, which
Yeah.
is what you're focusing on. What is the
Yeah.
actual pain point that is significant enough that they want to get rid of and buy a product or
Yeah.
service that doesn't exist or that's different, to get rid of that problem? That's never going to change. And I think that's like the basic fundamental principle,
Hmm.
like gravity. But then, as you mentioned, it's the same parallel. How do we either deliver that value with more value, go deeper, help them do things we
Right.
couldn't do before, or optimize on the back end where how we run the business is more efficient
Hmm.
versus not. So it's good to see the young gen still leveraging that, but then also thinking first of
Yeah.
problem first, because that's gonna solving problems is like the key thing for
Right.
any
Right.
work really. What are the mindsets that have changed for your students? Like you mentioned, first gen, scarcity to abundance. What are like the real changes that you're seeing? Because there's growth in like the tangible growth. You start a business or you don't. You get revenue or you don't. You get a customer or you don't. Like that's
Hmm.
binary, black and white. Growth also happens like, oh, they come in and they have a new idea based on
Right.
their pivot, or they see themselves and their situations differently. How are you seeing that shake out in their own personal
Yeah,
development?
I would say the biggest thing I see is around confidence, right? And so
Mm,
and I think that really comes from, like I already said, that they're first gen. And on top of being first gen, a lot of our students are Pell Grant recipients. And I know this very well because I was first
mm,
gen Pell Grant recipient, right? And so putting myself in their shoes and interacting with them, what I realize is that when you're first gen, usually, not always, but usually, your family puts so much stock into you doing all the right things and not messing up, right? Like just make sure you check the boxes and find a really good job. Like we put all we can to get you to that place. So don't mess up. And so imagine the family that has armed a student, their child, with all that information. And then they show up to me and I'm like, now we're going to fail fast. I violated everything that they've just heard. They're like, no, 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 no. I'm not supposed to fail. I'm supposed to minimize failure at all costs. And so they see failure as like a ding to their identity, right? And so what I have to do
mm,
is build that confidence up and transform their way of thinking like, no, failure is actually learning and it is a safe place to fail here. And that they've never experienced that because they have been the chosen ones. You are the chosen one in your family when you are the first to go off to college. And so I think the biggest thing I've been
mm.
facing is just the confidence. Like I don't know if I can fail, or I don't want to dream that big because I don't want to disappoint myself or have to tell somebody that I failed.
Mm.
So that is the challenge that we are seeing now, and it's work. It's definitely work, but I recognize what it is, and so we just have to try to overcome that.
So like failure is a learning feedback. It's safe to fail, and what else is like another key thing that or cornerstone that you focus on for them to change their mindset? Because what you're saying literally is effective there
Yeah,
because I live that. But even for the professional or like the executive right now who is
right,
high performance, it's the same
right,
mentality. I can't
right.
fail.
Yeah. No, I liked how you summarize that really quick. I'd say the other one is probably I'd say this it's there's definitely something about it being a safe space. Like I feel like we've all worked in environments
Mm,
where you want to take a chance, but you get penalized for taking that chance. Um, and for many students, that penalty has been in their grades, right? And so actually just creating an environment where they do see failure as part of the learning process, but they also see it as a step on the journey. Like you have to go through this. This is like an
mm,
emotion. This is part of the experience because I can't teach you the other things unless you actually feel this pain of what this is like, right? Probably similar to sports. Like
yeah.
you're gonna lose a game, right? But how do we get back up and play again?
Yeah.
And but in academics, we never teach students that. We never teach that you're gonna lose, right? Losing has always been C's, D's, and F's. But so changing that mindset
Yeah.
has been so I would say for the professional, it's really like how do you create this space where people are comfortable with failure and not failure over and over again, but you want people to make new mistakes. You want to create an environment where, yeah,
And take
yeah,
risks.
you definitely want to create a safe environment. You don't want people making the same mistake over and over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not reckless, but no, you're essentially helping the
Yeah.
students mature, because I think those are the two big R's, like risk and responsibility. Responsibility, you got a business, you got to uphold, what your
Right.
family's expecting, balance that with
Right.
risk taking. And I think that's getting people out of the shell. You're doing the podcast. I saw your website. You're doing like writing and speaking. How are you open sourcing this, and to use that language, but how are you helping either share this framework so that either, because universities have to pivot. I don't care which university you went to and you're listening to this. Again, different stories, different iterations, but
Right.
like they're gonna change. Like it's over expensive and the value prop is no longer there. So they're gonna have to change regardless of what happens. How are you, Jeff, like open sourcing this, or the framework, or sharing the teachings or the insights? Like, are you writing a newsletter? Like what
Yeah,
are
no,
you
that's
doing
a
for
good
this?
question, and it's something that I was talking about with some other professors. So one thing we do have is we are trying we do case studies. So we've started case studies, and it's so funny with case studies is that they take forever to get out into the world, right? And it's because, they're peer reviewed. They have to go through all these steps, and like I said, I've been here a year and a half, and we've been moving on case studies, but we've only had two. Right? Like, one of them got published by Sage. The other one is being reviewed by HBS, a Harvard Business Review publishing. But I was like, this is just taking too long. And so what I wanted to do was create, and what we're trying to do is create a podcast that can really just help people think through
Mm,
what we're doing here so that other folks can do it as well. But our model is very much open source. We think this model can be applied to a lot of small schools across the country. And so I definitely want people to take up,
Bigger
yeah,
institutions too, like
I want people to take up
you know,
what we're doing.
like a department. No, I like that. Yeah, I think that's the fastest path to sharing that. Frameworks, even the most powerful tool that I used back then, and I still even reference it to this day, is the business model canvas. It's
Hmm.
just a piece of paper. Forgot it
Yep.
was Eric
Yep.
Ries or whoever it was, but that little tool. I mean, I think if you develop that too for
Yeah.
what you're running, make it simple. Open books, podcasts, whatever it is to get the ideas out there. But that's pretty exciting. Jeff, for the audience, where can people go to learn more about you and your work at Paul
Yeah.
Quinn?
Thanks. The easiest way is if you go to Paul Quinn's website. If you go to paulquinn.edu, and then /entrepreneurship, you will see everything that we're working on right now. And to see all the stuff that I'm involved in terms of how I'm sharing out the information, you can go to my site, and that's jeff-meade.com, and Meade is spelled MEADE.com. You can see all that we're doing here at Paul Quinn, and all that I'm doing around venture-based learning. And that is my way to answer the previous question, how we're trying to get the material out to everybody.
We'll put those links in the show notes. Jeff,
Yeah,
thanks
thank you.
again for
This
being
is
on.
great.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to get more of these podcasts, please go ahead and subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to the pod. If you have any suggestions or questions that you want me to answer on the pod, or you have a guest that you want me to interview, please go ahead and email me all of your suggestions and questions at podcast@dogoodwork.io. That's podcast@dogoodwork.io. If you'd like to give me public feedback, you can go on Apple Podcasts, and from there, you can leave up to a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate that. If you like more free resources where you can get my best strategies to help you increase your company's performance and scale profitably, you can get handpicked articles to propel your growth, and you can get trainings and discussions that I give freely online, as well as low-cost resources such as my books and guides. You can get all of that by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. 90% of all of these resources are not behind any email opt-ins. You can get instant access by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. Now, if you'd like to accelerate your progress and shorten the gap between information and action and start seeing results in your business, let's work together to increase your company's performance and scale profitably and serve more clients without the overwhelm. You can request a free clarity call to see how we can best support you to reach your goals by going to dogoodwork.io/apply. Again, that's dogoodwork.io/apply. As always, it's an honor to be a small part in your journey. This is Raul Hernandez.
do good work.